This is going to be the video tutorial that covers the pattern pieces for the Maddy saddle bag. In this video, I'm going to go over all the pattern pieces and where they are in association to the bag itself. So before we begin, I want to give you a bit of information on taping your pattern pieces together. There are a fair amount of them, and if you go to the page just after the resource page, there will be a list of all of the pattern pieces that require taping together. So this is pattern piece A. On pattern piece A, you have the 2-inch square. So if you print this off first, before you print them all off, and test to make sure that that square is 2 inches, then you can go ahead and securely print off all of the other pieces, knowing full well that they are at 100%. You can also print off pattern piece D right here if you prefer, and this pattern is 4 inches by 7.5, so you can do that measurement as well. It's very important that these pieces get printed off at 100%. Okay, so as I said, there are a fair amount of pattern pieces that need to be taped together, so I want to just cover that information with you on this pattern. So this is pattern piece A. There are 2 pieces that have to be taped together. You will see that there is an AA associated, so you want to put the 2 A's together. If there was a BB or a CC, you want to put those together. In the left-hand corner, there is a small diagram of the actual pattern piece. So you can see up here at the top it says A1 and A2, and on the diagram down here it shows you where A1 and A2 go. And again, you want to match up the letters. So that's how it goes on all the pattern pieces that have to be pieced. Okay, let's begin. This is pattern piece A, which is your upper front. That piece is this piece right here on the bag. That's your upper front right there, and that is cut in one exterior piece. Pattern piece B is again taped together. There is a magnetic snap placement mark here, so you may want to punch those holes out so you can transfer those marks at the time that is required. This is your pocket front. You need one cut in the exterior and one cut in the medium weight fusible interfacing. That is this portion right here, which is your front pocket. Pattern piece C is your back, and once again, there's 4 pieces that need to be taped together on this one. That is that whole back section right here, and you want to cut one of those out in the exterior. Now you're also going to notice that there's areas that are highlighted on all the patterns. That identifies specific areas that you may need to place some marking. So this is where the back band placement is right here. That is pattern piece C. Pattern piece D is your base, which is this piece right here. You want to cut one of those out in the exterior. Pattern piece E, which is your sides. You'll need to cut 2 of those out in the exterior, and there are marks down here that are for the strap placement mark, and as you can see, it's again highlighted. That piece is right back here, not this piece right here, but the piece behind that. And on the other side, that is your side pieces. Pattern piece F is your flap. Again, there's 4 pieces that need to be taped together. You'll need to cut one of these in exterior, 1 in lining, and 2 in medium weight fusible interfacing. And of course, that is your flap right here. That's your exterior, that's your lining. Pattern piece G. This is your side straps. You'll need to cut 2 of these in your exterior. That is this section right here. So this piece goes all the way up and provides the area for your buckle. So that is actually going to be your strap. 2 in the exterior. H, this is your back band, which is this piece right here. So that's pretty easy. You need to cut one of those in exterior. Pattern piece I, this is your interior zipper overlay. So if you look inside the bag, right there, that's your zipper overlay right there. You're going to need to cut one of those in your exterior. Pattern piece J is your lining, your front and back wall of your lining. You'll need to cut 2 in lining and 2 in fusible interfacing, and you will need to remember to cut that window area out on the paper pattern piece only, so that when you place that down on the lining, you can trace that area for the zipper. Pattern piece J. Pattern piece K. This is what K looks like. Now I've got 2 of them here taped together, so I want to give you a bit of a tip on that. Again, K1 and K2 go together. This is a pattern piece that's placed on the fold. But to give you a bit of a tip, what I generally do is I print out 2 of these and I tape them together so that I have 1 full piece to work with, making sure that that is nice and straight. So you'll need to cut 1 of these out on the fold and lining and 1 out in fusible interfacing, but if you tape it together, you don't have to follow that fold. That is pattern piece K, which is your interior lining piece that goes all the way around and attaches your front and your back. Pattern piece L is your interior slip pocket, which is right in through here. And once again, it is in your pattern as on the fold, just like that. And again, I print off 2 pieces and I tape them together so I have 1 full piece. Now you'll notice on pattern piece L and pattern piece M, there is a directional print on here. So for example, it's quite easy when you're working with pattern piece J to know which direction, say you're working with a stripe, but it's not as easy to try to know which way you want to cut this piece. So I have added a directional print line on there to make it easier to follow. So that is your slip pocket. This is your interior zippered pocket. Once again, you've got your directional print. So that's the lining portion right in here of your zipper. Cut 1 in lining and 1 in fusible interfacing. Now there are going to be other pieces that you are going to need to cut out of your exterior, and I'll cover them in a second, but I want to cover the other pieces first. So we're going to need foam in this bag because it's got a nice soft feel to it. So any of the pattern pieces that are CC, DD, EE, and FF are generally the foam, or in this case FF is the thermolam. So what you're going to need to do is you need to pay attention to this right here, because if you do not have a self-adhesive foam, you need to make sure that the foam you're using can be glued in place with either a contact cement or a permanent spray adhesive. So the foam that I'm recommending is called Creatology. It comes in both black and white, and you get it from Michaels. So it says adhesive foam sheet. It's 9 by 12 inches. And you just peel the paper off that back after you've cut that shape and adhere it to the interior or the wrong side of your bag. And it really sticks well and holds just beautifully. And it makes it easy to apply. So that is the foam that I am recommending in this bag. So once again, you need to cut 2 of the self-adhesive foam under CC. You need to cut 2 of the self-adhesive foam of EE, which is your side pieces, 1 in your base. And now when we're talking about FF, there's a little bit more information on here. I am suggesting that you cut this in thermolam, so it says flap thermolam, and that way you get a nice soft feel in your flap. Now, let's just cover this pattern piece a little bit. You'll notice that there are 2 lines on here, the solid line around the outside and the dotted line about a 1/2 inch in from that solid line. Now, if you are making your flap without the braiding right here, you're going to need to cut your thermolam on that outside solid line. But if you're going to if you're going to be adding sort of the braiding here, then you'll need to cut it on the dotted line, and that specifically says so. So it says, please note, cut 1 on the solid line when using the binding only on the flap, or cut 1 on the dotted line when adding the braid to the flap. I generally print out 2 of these, and I cut 1 on the solid line and cut 1 on the dotted line so that I have a pattern for each of them for whichever way I wish to go. So that was pattern piece FF. Now there are three stabilizer pattern pieces, HS, GS, and NS, and those pieces are cut out of Decaville Light. This is your back band stabilizer, so that is the stabilizer that goes behind this band right here, and that's cut in Decaville Light. Pattern piece GS, which is your side strap stabilizer. So that is a solid piece that goes in here. So when you fold over pattern piece G, you've got something hard and structured to give that support for your strap. It is very important that you cut this smoothly along these edges, because if you don't, if you're a little inconsistent when you fold that over, you may show that little dips or whatever that you didn't cut nicely. So there are two in Decaville Light on pattern piece GS. Now, let me talk to you a little bit about these pieces right here. First of all, this is pattern piece NS, which is the other stabilizer, and this stabilizer is for the crossbody strap. So you can see how long this is. You've got pattern piece NS1, NS2, and NS3, which you need to tape together. You need to make sure that these are nice and straight along this edge, and they're very small, so you might want to lay them down on a gridded mat to tape them together. They are placed on the fold, as you can see. This is NS, and pattern piece N, which is the strap as well, is placed on the fold. Now here's a little bit of a tip for you. Let me move this out of the way to show you the best way to do this. I generally will cut a piece of Decaville Light that is 2 inches in width by the length I need, which I do believe is about 55 inches. So I use a rotary cutter, and I've got a nice straight edge right here to work with. So what I do is I tape this piece down onto the table, and then I lay this pattern piece NS down on top. So what I've done is along this edge right here, I have placed that along that straight edge right there of my Decaville Light, and I would tape this to the table to make sure that it's not going to move on me. And then I go down along here and I trace that whole side onto the Decaville Light, just like that. So you can see under here I've traced that side, so I have something to cut. Once I get that side done, I generally will flip this piece over like this, because it's taped onto the Decaville Light, and I again line that edge to the edge of the Decaville Light, and I make sure that it's all straight and even, and then I trace that other side onto the Decaville Light, and then I'll cut that piece away. That way it keeps everything nice and straight and even, and you don't get a piece that's kind of skewed like this. So that's a really important tip for you on how to cut out this strap stabilizer. And once again, you want to make sure that you've cut this nice and even, because your piece will fold over the Decaville Light and it'll give you that guide for the shape. So those are those stabilizers right there. Pattern piece N, as you can see, there we go. This is 3 pieces again. This is your crossbody strap cut in your exterior. So again, you want to tape these together so they're nice and straight and even. Now what I like to do is I like to cut 2 pieces out, and I put it on a piece of hard cardstock so that I have a nice hard edge to trace around. As you can see, I have taped 2 pieces together in this case, so that I can lay that piece down on top of that piece that I have cut. So I have actually cut a strip of approximately 3.5 inches in width, when this is about 3 3/8 total width here. So I'll have a little bit past that, as you can see. I'll lay that down, make sure that it's all nice and square all the way to the other end. Then I'll trace that shape so that I can make sure everything is nice and straight and not bent up. So that's a little bit of a tip for you on how to cut out the longer strap portions. Now that covers all of the actual pattern pieces for the Maddy saddle bag, but you need to pay close attention to the cutting chart, because there are other pieces that you do need to cut based on measurements given. For example, you are going to need to cut the grab handle and the stabilizer. You're also going to need to cut this top strap piece right here. That's the information in the cutting chart, as well as your strap holder. There's 2 of those, so pay attention to that. The binding strip right here, as well as your braiding strip right here if you're adding the braiding. And of course you've got a slip pocket lining or piece binding right here as well. So if I've missed any of those extra pieces, you do need to pay attention to them in the cutting chart as well. So go over everything really well on your cutting chart, because if it's not in a actual pattern piece, then it is listed separately with measurements that you need to cut. And there's little scrap pieces as well for stabilizer and stuff like that. So that covers everything that you needed to know on the pattern pieces, and hopefully that helped you a little bit to know where they go on the bag itself. So now we're going to head over and we're going to begin our prep video, which is all of our markings on these pattern pieces.